and they deconstructed the house. You were looking at the pictures.
Wow.
So they started taking the house apart, and you can see, like in this photograph, where there are numbers on the wood. They actually hammered a metal tag on every piece of wood and numbered every piece of wood in the house.
To put it back.
So they knew how to put it back together again. And he formed a spreadsheet before we had computers.
Right.
So that they could put the house back together again. So by this time it's 1941 that this is going on. World War II breaks out. You're a little older now, so you're fighting in World War II.
Right.
Saving democracy. He's a good guy.
Yes, he is.
So World War II comes along. By this time, the house is in pieces laying on campus, and it doesn't get put together again until after the war.
Wow.
So it sits in pieces on the campus.
Wow.
Then after the war, in 1945, they start putting it together. It's first opened to the public in 1950, but they don't put it together here. They put it together on the edge of campus in 1945.
Wow.
Today it would be like the center of campus.
Right.
So in 1994, they pick it up and move it again in one piece to this location here. So the house has actually been moved twice.
Okay.
So some of the weird quirks. You see in the picture there's a porch on it. Well, we don't have a porch today. Because the dean and the architect from the Department of Interior felt that that porch was not an original. So they kind of made the assumption that there wasn't a porch originally on it.
Right,
Now,
so they didn't put it on there.
200 years later, it could have been a replacement porch, but
Yeah.
the house, historical architects today would have said the house had a porch originally, and so the university should have rebuilt a porch on it today. And so we hope to do that. So now that you're out of the war and you're wealthy, you can donate the money and we'll name the porch after you.
You know it. Just the porch.
Just the porch.
Keep them on the porch.
It's still going to be the Hanover house, but we'll
Right.
name the porch after you. That's one thing. The second is that you see all these gaps in the foundation. It kind of looks like the foundation is failing. Well, honestly, those gaps were built in intentionally because the kitchen was in the basement. And so the cooking fireplace in the 1700s, a fire ran in it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So imagine a day as hot as today with a fireplace going in your house and no air conditioning. How unbearable that would be. So they built these air gaps in to let it heat up. But this gap right here was actually an archway, and it was how you got into the basement. Because of all that heat, they didn't have stairs that went to the basement here. Because if you cut a hole in the floor, all that heat would have come up into the house. So the only people who went into the basement were the slaves. And so they didn't.
Do this got a basement?
This house, we're in the Low Country, had a basement.
Do this one?
Yeah, we did not rebuild a basement.
Okay.
And the cooking fireplace was in the basement. And so, with the slaves being the only ones that go down there, they didn't build a normal set of stairs because that wasn't important to them at that time.
Right.
What they did was they built a pit right by the back door that you came over.
They built a pit.
And this kind of a ladder stairs was what went down into that, so they could get in and out of the basement.
Okay.
The house was originally intended to be brick. He had a really hard time making bricks because in order to make bricks down in the Low Country, you had to have clay shipped from up here.
Okay.
Before railroads, before roads, so it's quite an undertaking. So eventually he decided to have a wooden house, and they milled the wood right off the plantation. It was on a rice plantation with West African slaves. The house was built with slave labor.
Yeah.
They actually then, all of the wood except the front door is called black cypress, and black cypress is rock resistant and insect resistant.
It don't grow. It don't grow no more.
Yeah, that's why it lasts as long as it is, even though it was poorly cared for. Through the years. And so you are walking on 300-year-old floorboards, basically.
Ooh,
as you
spirits of my ancestors.
Now, the West African slaves, and why I make a big deal out of the West African part of it, is the West African slaves were really important to the South Carolina industry.
Let me come feel the cotton. You ever pick cotton or tobacco?
Yeah, nobody picks cotton by hand anymore.
Look, now they got machines that do it now,
Yeah,
but on my people's land, we still got cotton, so they go out there and pick it.
Well,
for the newborn babies, they make their first pair of socks.
Well, a lot of people, go out and go in the fields after the cotton's been picked and get all the scraps.
Yep, yep.
Because they leave tons of
Yeah, they
cotton
do.
behind with
Yep.
the machines.
Yep.
And I know some women who make their own yarn and dye their own yarn, do things,
Yep.
and they go out and they
Get the
scavenge
cotton.
the
Yep.
cotton.
Yep.
But most of it's on the ground and not on
Yeah.
the plants at that point.
Yep.
So so West African slaves were important because in West Africa they grew rice already and they grew indigo. And rice and indigo were the big crops. in
Did you
South
hear what they
Carolina.
grew? Rice and indigo. Okay, go ahead.
And
Sorry.
so without the West African slaves in South Carolina, the rice industry would have suffered greatly because they already came having the skill set necessary to grow and harvest rice and knew how to do that.
What is this?
That is a bread box, if you could believe it.
What?
It is. So
Wow.
you've got these little ridges in here so the bread stayed up so
Yeah.
that the air would go underneath
Yeah.
it so it would dry properly. It's hung up on the wall because you worried about rodents getting into it. You didn't worry about flies and everything
Right.
because we didn't have screens. Flies were just a way of life. So this would hang on the wall as a way for bread to dry afterwards.
Okay.
It's good. Now here's one for you though.
What is that?
That is a kitchen appliance.
I'm a chef. Let's see, a juicer, a slicer.
Kind of good. No.
It's slice
It kind
something.
of slices. It's
Yeah.
actually called a salt or a sugar nipper.
Okay.
So salt and sugar were sold in cones
Okay.
during that time. The solid blocks, basically. So you'd have a little bowl.
Like
of
the
it, and
ice?
Yeah.
Like
and,
the
and
ice.
you'd shave off the end of the salt or the sugar that you
Oh.
wanted to use that day.
Okay.
Because that was a very important commodity. This was
brush.
a boy. This was for teaching boys manners.
Yeah, they sat
Yeah.
on there. What they do with it?
No, that would go on the wall. You'd strip cotton or flax through it. You'd pull that.
Oh
through.
wow. What's this?
That is actually part of a candlestick, but it's badly damaged
Okay.
over time.
Okay. No, that's an iron.
That
That's
is
a candle
pick,
thing.
Pick the iron up once. though.
Well, dang. Oh.
But-
Wait. I ain't iron it. That thing heavy, baby.
So you know how they heated the irons at that point in time.
Put it in the fire.
Well, not in the fire because it'd be dirty, but you put it right near the fireplace so it would heat up.
Yeah.
You know, so that you would then iron your clothes.
You could iron everything with that thing.
Yeah, you could also educate your.
You know it. You know it.
So did you go to culinary school?
Yes, I did. I went to Le Cordon Bleu. Graduated top of my
Really?
class, and I'm online going to Escoffier.
My son is a chef out in Salem. He went to the Oregon what's it called?
School of Culinary Arts.
Well, it was in Portland. It was I think it was the School of Culinary Arts.
Of Oregon.
School
Yep.
of Culinary Arts.
Yep. Love to cook. Now I'm getting off into plant-based.
Well, I think he wanted to cook so he'd have someone else clean up for him. I
Right. So we
think that's-
go down here,
Yeah.
and then we can go upstairs, right?
So one of the things that is kind of unique, the university has made some decisions during time. You know, the paint colors aren't clearly original.
No.
But they thought back in the 1940s when they're putting the house together, this looks like what you'd think colonial America kind of paints would be. But we know